Hey guys, Philarus here with a Nocturne jungle clear guide for Season 13. This video will include both his red and blue side starts. Now, Nocturne's clear is pretty straightforward now that double camping has been removed, so I'm going to do something a bit different in this video and take the opportunity to discuss his itemization while I let the clears play, as I think with the 80 item changes coming in patch 13.2, Nocturne's positioned to become a fairly strong solo queue pick, and he's been one of my favorite champions for a long time. Let's talk about his assassin build first. On the current patch, Axiom Arc has been buffed from 10 lethality to 18. Now, Axiom Arc's never been a core item for Nocturne, as he typically builds Bruiser as opposed to full assassin. But with the buffs, Axiom Arc is now a fairly strong option when snowballing into squishy team compositions. The most common mythic pairing with Axiom Arc is Eclipse, as among the lethality mythics, it best fits Nocturne's identity as a light fighter. Now the thing about Eclipse is it's a very awkward early game item for Nocturne, as it doesn't possess the ability haste that Nocturne typically wants early in the game to lower the cooldown of his ultimate. But on patch 13.2, Eclipse is losing its Omnivamp in return for some ability haste and a lower cooldown on its proc. Nocturne isn't a champion that cares much about Omnivamp, as he's not a bruiser that can drain tank and take over fights the way a champion like Aatrox can. He much prefers the ability haste and lower proc cooldown on the new Eclipse. If you think about the way Assassin Nocturne plays fights, he ults in and Qs, and if he didn't one-shot his target, he then finishes them with auto attacks. He doesn't take damage until he's already used his burst, so Omnivamp is really just healing him a very minor amount off his auto attacks, which on an Assassin build aren't being amplified by any attack speed or on hits. So Nocturne greatly prefers the extra damage and survivability he gets from reaching his second Eclipse proc 2 seconds faster. So Nocturne's Assassin build now has a considerably buffed 2-item core of Axiom Arc and Eclipse, which should make him incredibly obnoxious for squishy team compositions to deal with. Of course, you don't have to build Axiom Arc with Eclipse. You can also take it with Stridebreaker or Duskblade if you prefer. But the changed Eclipse on 13.2 should present a very strong synergistic combination to consider. Now the more common Nocturne build is his Stridebreaker Bruiser build, as the champion doesn't quite have the ratios or in-fight mobility to achieve reliability as an assassin every game. A pretty typical Nocturne build looks something like Stridebreaker into Black Cleaver and Death Stance or Maw of Malmortius. This build is getting kind of a power neutral side grade in patch 13.2. Black Cleaver is receiving some additional health and attack damage without a price increase, making it a very powerful and consistent second item for Nocturne. Now the changes to Death Stance and Maw of Malmortius are generally considered nerfs to most AD bruisers and casters, but the changes actually don't hit Nocturne very hard. This is because while Nocturne really likes ability haste on his early core items, he doesn't benefit much from additional ability haste later on in his build. By the time Nocturne is on his 3rd and 4th item, his ultimate cooldown is already so low that it's generally up whenever you need it, and his basic abilities do not scale extremely well with ability haste. Nocturne is something of a one-and-done champion. He ults in and tries to finish his primary target with his initial cycle of abilities and auto attacks, as he doesn't possess strong tools to disengage and then re-engage fights after his initial ultimate. So the increased base stats on Maw and Death Stance should actually kind of balance out the nerfs in most situations for Nocturne. If they do end up a little bit weak, Sterak's Gauge is actually a good semi-defensive option again after its buff a few patches ago. So between his two builds, Assassin Nocturne has received considerable buffs, while Bruiser Nocturne has received minor buffs, or relatively power-neutral changes to his common items. Paired with nerfs that are inevitably coming to outlier junglers like Maokai, I think Nocturne is positioned to become a fairly easy and powerful pick for climbing solo queue in the coming patches. Thanks for watching. A quick reminder that I do coach over at nice.gg if you want to check that out. The link is in the video description below. As always, a big thank you to my patrons for helping to make this channel possible.